there, it's Mitzi. Welcome to my channel. So today I'm sharing an update on what I've been reading, and this is what I've read so far in January. I keep a reading journal, but it really, I don't know why, but it just didn't work for me to bring my journal on here and talk from that journal. So I decided to do it a little different this year. And last year, Janet, one of my subscribers, so if you watch this, Janet, thank you so much. She had sent me this little notebook, and it's really cute. It is a cover of an Agatha Christie Crooked House, which, by the way, is a great Agatha Christie, and the back is the back. And this person, it's on the inside, it says recovered, and it's a Much Ado Books. I think that's what it's called. Much Ado Books. And this is called Recovered. And what this person does is they take old covers and make them into notebooks. And that's perfect for me because I love vintage covers. So Janet knew that about me. She knew I loved Agatha Christie. She knew I loved vintage everything. So she sent me this. So thank you to Janet, because it gave me the idea that I could use this for notes. So it's kind of like a reading journal, but it's more of just things I want to remember to tell you as I go along with these updates. And this, I think, is going to help me because I won't be chasing rabbits and get off on a tangent, I hope. Anyway, so thank you to Janet, first of all, for sending me this little book. And it has this paper in it that's really thick. So it's easy for me to use to, because what I'm doing is, like my first book was Before the Fact. So I stuck a picture of Before the Fact, and then I've got notes and how, you know, my rating and that kind of thing on here. So I'm really excited about it. So the first one is Before the Fact, and this was what I started January 1st and loved. It was a great start to January for 2025. This is called Before the Fact by Francis Iles. This person, that's a pen name, I think. I think the person is Anthony Berkeley Cox. I think that's the person's name. But Francis Iles is the pen name for who wrote this book. And this was actually made into a movie as well. And I was just chomping at the bit to try this because Alfred Hitchcock did make a movie based on this book. So this is one of those reprints by the British, what is it called? The British Library Crime Classics. So this cover is, if you're familiar with the British crime classics, you will be familiar with this kind of cover because all of them look similar to this. They usually have the name up here in a little box, and then they have these very pretty vintagey looking covers, but they're new. And I love these. So anyway, I have several of them on my shelf, and this was one of my vintage books that I wanted to read for 2025. And again, it was fantastic. It was a 5-star read. So for this one, it was published in 1932. It has 301 pages. And for the genre, I called it a psychological thriller, which thrilled my soul because I do like a psychological thriller. This was super suspenseful. If you like Alfred Hitchcock, you would like this book because it gives that sort of feel. It's about, what are their names? That's why this comes in handy. Her name's Lena. So there's this plain Jane Lena who falls in love with Johnny, and he is, he's a ladies' man. He's very charming, but he's a gambler. And she falls in love with him and marries him. And after she marries him, everybody around her thinks, okay, Johnny married Lena for her money. Because she is this plain Jane, nobody really pays her any attention sort of person. And she is to have this big inheritance. So everybody around her thinks, okay, Johnny married her for her money. Well, on their honeymoon, she already starts suspecting him for some things. And this is not a spoiler. The first sentence had me because it says he's a murderer. It says, let me find the first page. There's an introduction here. Okay, part 1. It says, some women give birth to murderers, some go to bed with them, and some marry them. Lena Asgarth had lived with her husband for nearly 8 years before she realized that she was married to a murderer. That's the first sentence. So yes, I was hooked. So I was like, okay, how is this going to go? So anyway, so Lena marries him, and on her, at the beginning, you learn that even on the honeymoon, he was doing some things that she disagreed with, things that were unethical, like they go out to dinner, and she doesn't. He cheats the man on the paying. So when he gets a receipt, he cheats him out of money. So then he doesn't pay for where they're staying. There's little things through, and she's like, "Aren't you going to pay them?" And he makes it like, "Oh yes, I did," or so he'll lie about it, or he'll say, "Well, they owe me money anyway because it's overpriced," or something like that. So that's how it starts, and then as it continues, she starts realizing that he's a gambler, that he has told her things that aren't true. And then she becomes suspicious of him, that he has murdered someone. And I'm not going to go into details about that. And then she starts fearing for her own life. So that's what happens in this. And it is a page turner. So at the top of my little book, I've got things I want to tell you of why I liked it. It was a 5-star read. And the reason I loved it was a page turner. And it had an ambiguous ending. Now, if you don't like ambiguous endings, you might not like this because it does have an ambiguous ending. But I liked it for that. I love an ambiguous ending. And I love psychological thriller type books. So this was really a good one. Because it was the whole, why do people do what they do sort of thing? And how does a person become a criminal? Are they born that way, or do they, develop into one? Those kind of things is what I was thinking about as I read it. So I highly recommend it if you like psychological thrillers and if you like Alfred Hitchcock. And I also added on my notes, if you like the books Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, if you like The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. It's not the same kind of thing as The Haunting of Hill House. The Haunting of Hill House is gothic, and it has a supernatural element to it. However, it is an unreliable narrator who you're not sure if there really is something supernatural or not. So that's why I say it's similar to that. And then Vera by Elizabeth von Arnim. It reminds me a little bit of Vera too, because it's sort of a gaslighting type book too. So if you like Vera, Rebecca, or The Haunting of Hill House, you may be interested in this one before the fact. And I loved it. It was a great start to my reading this year. And then I read In the Shadow of the Tower. This is a Carolyn King. You may recognize Carolyn King, who wrote Nancy Drew, which is a pen name for a lot of other writers. There were ghost writers who just wrote under the name Carolyn King. And this is another middle grade mystery series written at the same time. So this was written in 1934, and it has 217 pages, and the genre is middle grade mystery. And it is a lot like Nancy Drew. However, I gave this one only 3 stars because it's not as good as Nancy Drew. Now, the first one in this series, oh, by the way, this is the Dana Girls. Did I say that? This is a series called the Dana Girls. So instead of just Nancy, you have 2 sisters, the Dana sisters, who solve the crime. And they're in school, and they go on like Christmas breaks and holidays and things and solve crimes. And sometimes they solve crimes at school, because like the first one, they had just started their semester at school, and they solved a crime about a lamp that had been taken from their dorm where they were staying, for school. And it was good, but this one wasn't. And actually, I didn't like the second one that much either. Now, I only have 3 of these. This is my 3rd, so I've read those. So unless I just see one somewhere super cheap, I'm probably not going to continue this series. We'll see. But, the first one was good, but the second 2, not so much. This is the Dana Girls help a crippled girl named Josie. And It was very interesting to begin with, because Josie comes through and she's running away, and they try to help her because a fox has taken her $1,000 bill. So, this is the 1930s, and you're thinking, okay, what is this young girl, this crippled girl, doing with a $1,000 bill? So that's how the story starts, and they're trying to help her. And there are several mysteries because of that incident. There's several mysteries that happen including three people go missing in this story. I think there's 3 people who go missing. So to me, it was just a little too much of a mystery. You know, we were following several things. I think they just tried to go overboard to make it more interesting, but it didn't. And it was dated. I mean, Nancy Drew's dated, but in a good way. This was not dated in a good way. So that's why I only gave it 3 stars. I said it was an okay read. I did like that it took place around Christmas time because I was trying to find some wintry seasonal reading. However, there's not much Christmas in it. It takes place at Christmas and they get together on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But besides unwrapping some presents, they really don't even talk about it. And you know, if it's Christmassy, I want to know what they're eating and their decorations and all those things. And none of that's in here. But it is set in at Christmas time during their Christmas break on into January. So it is snowy and Christmassy for that reason. But anyway, I wouldn't recommend that one. I say stick to the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew. Okay, so then I read, let's look in my little book. Oh, Caddie Woodlawn. That is such a good one, y'all. This is a Newbery, so that's why I was reading this one. And I wanted to read it now because it is wintry. Caddie Woodlawn is by Carol Ryrie Brink, who's written several stories that I'm interested in reading. This was published in 1935, and it's 215 pages, and it did, you see that it has the Newbery Award on the front. I called this children's historical fiction. So this is set in the 1860s, and it's about an 11-year-old named Caddie, and she lives in Wisconsin with her family during the 1860s, and she had been ill. She had gotten very sick, deathly sick. And so her father, to encourage her getting better, had let her, from the time she was very young, just run wild with her brothers out, you know, on the prairie kind of thing. And it does have that Little House on the Prairie type feel to it. So she had grown up that way. Well, now that she's 11, she's kind of struggling between being more of a lady, as in the 1800s kind of lady, more ladylike, or still, you know, running wild with her brothers. And so there's a little coming of age with that. But it was a delight to read. It's just a wholesome story with wonderful scenes with the family and how the family pulls together and makes decisions together and how they love and support each other. There's a little bit, there's an event in here about the people in the area looking down on the Native Americans who live close by, and how Caddie kind of takes, you know, has compassion on them. And she actually is a hero in the story because of one time she goes to warn them that the white men are coming after them, sort of thing. And so she shows courage through that, but she also shows compassion to a couple of the children who were sort of mistreated because of, you know, who they are and their parents and that kind of thing. So I like that about it too, but I loved it mostly for the wholesome family aspect of it. It's just a delight to read. And I said, if you enjoy the Little House series, of course, it's just like very similar to the Little House on the Prairie series and Anne of Green Gables. I think that it reminds me of Anne Shirley. Not so much the drama of Anne, you know, she's overly dramatic, but the courage that she has, I don't know, it's just she's not the same as Anne, but the characterization, you know, you can't beat the characterization in a Lucy Maud Montgomery book, and that's how this is. She's a strong female character, and she's just a delight to read about. So I do recommend Caddie Woodlawn, and I gave this 5 stars. And I'm looking on here, it says that in 1989 there was a television adaptation made of this. I haven't seen it, but I'd like to watch it. Let me know if you've read it or if you've watched that TV adaptation. I'd like to know that too. Okay, let's look in my little book and see what was next. Oh, the next one. Y'all, this was so good. I read the next Agatha Christie. I'm trying to read through the standalones. I think I have one left. And I read Endless Night. Now, this was fantastic. It was published in 1967. Very short. Didn't take me long to read through this one. It was 181 pages. And I called this more than a mystery. I actually called this a psychological thriller because to me, it was a lot like Before the Fact. More so than other Agatha Christie's. You know, Agatha Christie has some that are a little darker than others. And this is one. There's definitely a mystery, of course. But this one had a totally different feel to it than any of the others I've read. So yes, 1967 psychological thriller. This is about Michael Rogers. And Michael Rogers tells this story of how he met his wife, Ellie. Ellie is a wealthy, she comes from a wealthy background. Michael does not. And so they're, at the beginning, it's kind of like, should we even marry? Because, you know, we have such different families and different lifestyles and all of that. But they're in love, so they get married. And Michael has this dream of living at this certain place. It's called Gypsy's Acre. I think that's what it's called. And he wants to build a house there. So that's what they do. They buy this property and they build their dream home on Gypsy's Acre. But as soon as they do this, there's like these strange things start to happen. There's this woman who seems like a witch or something, and she is almost like going to curse them, and she tells them to leave the land. Rocks get thrown through the window with warnings about you better leave, that kind of thing. And then finally, someone does die. So this is a lot like a normal Agatha Christie, and there is a dead body and a mystery, but it's told in such a personal way. I felt this one was so much more personal than the others. The others I feel like I'm kind of watching and then trying to figure out the motive. In this one, I felt like I was so attached to these people. I was very attached. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to give anything away, but I was very attached and personally involved in the story. Maybe because it's first person, you know, he's telling the story. I'm not sure. But anyway, at the end you kind of understand why. But it was a page turner for sure. 5-star, highly recommended. I loved this. I loved this one. Okay, let's see what else my notes say on this one. I said, oh, the other thing, this is why I need this little book. So, strange things happen, and then this other woman, she's a domineering kind of person. She is Ellie's companion, and her name's Greta. And Ellie has always depended on Greta, and Greta ends up moving in with them. So then it really does become very dark. I'll just put it that way. So that was something I wanted to say too. And that's why I've got this little trusty notebook to tell you these things. Okay, movie tie-ins. There were some adaptations. In 1972, they made a movie. And then there is a Marple TV episode based on this from 2013. Now, I did see when I looked this up about the movie tie-in, it said that there was a Miss Marple short story that was pretty much the same plot but had different names. So I'm not sure if that's what the TV adaptation is or if it's actually this book. And I don't want to give you a title for Miss Marple because I don't want to, if you've read that and you haven't read Endless Night, I don't want to mess the plot up for you. But anyway, they did make a Miss Marple that is pretty much the plot of Endless Night as well. If you like And Then There Were None, or this book that I talked about, if you've read Before the Fact, Alfred Hitchcock type psychological thrillers, you'll enjoy this one, Endless Night. And it is more like And Then There Were None if you've read that one. Okay, so what did I read next? Oh, 5-star. Did I say that? And then I read, this is the last one for this week. This was so good too. Y'all, I read such good books. This was so good. Not that. Let's find it. Okay, I read A Winter Away by Elizabeth Fair. Now, this is a Dean Street Press. They're called Furrowed Middlebrow books. And I have several of these, and I'm going to buy more because I love these. This was published in 1957. It's 234 pages. And I called the genre a cozy British humor. I didn't know really what to call it, but it's cozy and it's British humor. If you enjoy British humor from the 1950s, you might enjoy this. I did. I loved it. It was 5-star. I'm telling y'all, I had great reading books to read the last few weeks. So this one is about a girl named Maud. And Maud is living with her stepmom, and she decides she wants to leave her overbearing stepmother, and she moves to the country with her cousin Alice and Alice's companion Miss Conway. And while she's there, she gets a job working for someone in this village, Mr. what was his name? Finiston. Mr. Finiston, they call him Old M. But Mr. Finiston has this just old house that's kind of crumbling. It's a big estate, but he has this library that's in disarray. And so Maud is hired by Mr. Finiston to be his secretary, to catalog this library and to pretty much just do his bidding and do whatever he needs her to do. And it is just great. If you like village life type books, you would probably enjoy this one. And she meets a lot of people along the way. What I liked about it was Maud really changes the people around her, because like Mr. Finiston, that they call Old M, is just this grouchy old man that he doesn't like for his relatives to come around, and he's just, I don't know, he's just a grumpy old man. And he doesn't get along with his son either. They bicker because, well, he's grumpy and he's not taking care of the estate and all of these things. And then there's some other people in the village that there's some issues with them too. And Maud kind of settles a lot of things. She's kind of like a problem solver, and she just loves being in this village, and she loves all the people, and she just has such a great attitude and a loving spirit that she affects them that way. So I loved that about it, that it showed how her character was a positive influence on the whole town, and I like that about it. So anyway, 5-star read. I put my little notes at the top of what I loved most about it was eccentric characters. The characters are so interesting. Beautiful characterization in this book. They're all quirky. Humorous village life and witty dialogue. The dialogue was great. Very snappy kind of witty dialogue in this one. If you like Barbara Pym or D.E. Stevenson, you'd probably enjoy Elizabeth Fair. Now, this is my first Elizabeth Fair, so I'm going on just this one. But I do have another one. I had picked this one up and meant to read it last year, and I hadn't read it. Landscape in Sunlight by Elizabeth Fair. Let me see if you can see that. Can you see it? There we go. And I'm going to read this one later on. I'll probably read this in the summer because it looks summery. And this definitely was a good winter read because there's a lot of snowy type seasonal things going on. It starts around the fall, and it goes more though, spends more time around Christmas and right after Christmas time. So I did enjoy this one. I don't know of any movies or TV adaptations or anything, but this was a good one too. I wish they would make a movie though, because this would make a great film. It would make a great film. So I would love for them to make a movie of that. Oh, by the way, I brought my copy of the DVD of the movie that Alfred Hitchcock made based on Before the Fact. It was called Suspicion by Alfred Hitchcock, and Cary Grant and Joan Fontaine were in that. That's what it looks like if you want to look it up. And I don't know, did I say when that came out? Let me see. The movie came out in 1941. The book was before, I'm talking about Before the Fact now. I've gone back to that. Before the Fact was published in 1932, but this movie, Suspicion, it came out in 1941. The movie was good. I enjoyed the movie, but it is different. I'll just say that. The plot's the same, but the ending is very different. I'll just say that about it. This is much darker. If you've watched this, this is much darker. So I'll just say that about it, because it is Cary Grant. Anyway, they do a great job in this. I loved the atmosphere. I loved Cary Grant, of course, and Fontaine in this. And the costumes were just beautiful. I loved their clothes. Their clothes are beautiful in this. So anyway, those were the books that I read just recently during January so far. I have a couple of others. Ethan Frome by Edith Wharton is on my nightstand right now because you voted for me to read that one. So that's one of the classics that I want to read this year. I'm reading that. I have my nature books that I'm reading. I told you I was going to do some seasonal reading. That's going well. I'm still reading through some of those. So I'll keep you posted on those, every couple of months or so, how that's going too. So let me know if you've read any of these books. Leave a comment for what you're reading right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.